There you go.
Oh, hang on, I gotta accept it on our side too. Okay.
Okay, now we should be good.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Jim, you ready to share the screen?
I'm ready. Here we go.
I think you got to maximize the slide there, Jim.
Oh, you're not seeing the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, now we kind of are, but I think there's a black spot. There you go. Okay, we're all set. All right, Steve, thank you very much. Our pleasure to be here tonight. I think it's only our second time that we presented to Canadian clubs, right, Jim? I think there's a second time.
Yeah, it is. This is our second time.
Yeah, I think the other time was also in Ontario. We had a nice time with the Burlington Club about a year and a half ago. But anyhow, I'm Howard, WB2UZE, based in New York. And Jim?
I'm Jim, W6GIM, and I'm about 20 miles east of San Francisco.
By the way, Jim, how's the weather out there? Are you getting inundated with rain?
We're getting dumped on out here. Yeah, we're getting lots and lots of rain. I mean, I can't complain because during the summer, all we asked for was rain. So we got it.
Have to shovel rain. What's your problem?
That's right. We got it. I'm happy. We got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's either feast or famine in California. Okay, so we're from the Long Island CW Club, and thank you for having us. And today's presentation will be how to learn and have fun with Morse code. Let's get started, Jim.
All right.
Okay, so what is the attraction of CW in today's high-tech world? Why would anybody want to learn CW or do CW when there's very sophisticated digital modes like FT8? Well, you know, it's been interesting to us. There's been quite a resurgence in CW these days. And one of the main drivers is that young people that are coming into the hobby are very interested in parks on the air and summits on the air. And if you're going to go up to a top of a mountain, you certainly would like to have the lightest gear possible, and that's better done with CW. Today's CW rigs that can do 5 watts are sometimes no bigger than a pack of cigarettes, and they can work out well with compromised antennas, and you don't need a computer. And CW gets out better than sideband with these type of conditions. Another thing that we're finding is that being that CW is no longer required by different entities worldwide to get a license, people feel now more motivated to learn it. And sometimes after 20 years, they're coming back to it when they're retired. So we got a lot of people in their 50 plus years wanting to learn. And then the other thing is that people today are maybe a little bit tired of everything being so computerized, mechanized, and everything sitting in the palm of your hand so easy like a cell phone, that it's kind of romantic to use CW. And CW still works great and kind of brings it back to the way things used to be. So there's more reasons, but I would say those would be the top 3. Okay, Jim, next slide is learning CW.
Learning CW. In our program at the Long Island CW Club, we teach all the characters in 2 classes. The first 20 characters in one class and the second 20 characters in a second class. And then we have a variety of classes to help refine what you learned and get you to use it in the proper format to get on the air and make QSOs. Our new method that we were teaching it at 20 words a minute, and we've been doing some experimenting with some different teaching techniques. And now we're teaching it at 12 words a minute. And but regardless of the speed, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the students to learn the character as a sound. And what we want them to do is really receive that sound of each character in the language center of their brain. So they're hearing it as a language and not trying to count the dits and the das and trying to figure it out that way. So everything we do is with a focus to the QSO. And everything, even when we're teaching the characters in the beginning, we teach it in a way, in a certain order, so that we can begin creating words and abbreviations that you'll hear in QSOs. So that's our focus, and that's our method. And we find that whenever students put in the time, and we only ask them to practice maybe 20 minutes a day, maybe twice a day if you have the time. And the students to stick to the program, we have fantastic results, and we get them on the air. Howard?
Yeah, that's right, Jim. And just a little bit more on why we changed our curriculum last year. We weren't exactly satisfied with the common way that everybody was teaching CW. And that was what they call with a Farnsworth method, where the common wisdom was to teach at a fast character speed, like 20 words a minute, but slow down and spaced at 5 words a minute. But we found what that was doing was when people were getting on the air, they weren't hearing CW like that. They would be hearing CW at a true 12 or 15 words a minute, and they were totally confused. So we figured, let's kind of slow it down to 12 words a minute, which would be typical of what you would encounter when you're on the air. And this was further confirmed by our study of some documents from the 1920s through the 1940s and through World War II, written by Koch himself and some other scholars that we had translated from German. And this seemed to confirm what we were thinking about. So we gave it a shot, and it's working very well. Okay, Jim, what's next?
Next, we're going to show or talk about some different kinds of keys.
You know, Jim, one thing, there's this black line that seems to be visiting us today. Any way to get rid of that, or
I don't see that. Can anybody else see that as well? All I see is the slides.
Yes. Yeah. It's in the top, just above the straight key versus keyer text on the right.
Let me, I think I can get rid of it.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good there, but now
Okay.
we gotta expand.
Okay, here we go. We're going to come back. I got a new computer set up, so thank you for letting me experiment on you tonight.
Yeah, well, that one, we still got it there, Jim.
Oh, it's still there?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the
Oh, that black line, that's the line that's part of Zoom. I think it's got all my options. Let me see if I can get it to leave.
one's done. Yeah.
Maybe if I don't touch my mouse, it'll disappear.
Nope.
I'm,
The only,
well, is it on the top right
yeah,
side?
it's on the upper right. I mean, I don't think we should spend a lot of time on it. It's not terrible, but it's a little bit distracting.
Yeah, it's that Zoom bar. I'm not sure how to make it go away. Let me see if I can.
We can drag it.
Maybe I can minimize it. Am I gonna drag it? Yeah, here we go. Okay, we'll put
No.
it down over here. Okay, sorry
No.
about that.
No, Jim, now we got, okay, yep, all right.
Yeah, hopefully it'll Zoom bar will disappear.
Yeah, we'll keep it at
eventually.
the lower left. All right, so let's go back to where we were.
Okay, here we are.
The keys, straight key versus keyer. Okay, sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, straight key versus keyer. What do we recommend? Well, I always say if you put this question out on a forum like qrz.com or eham, you'd get 10,000 answers. So what's our feeling about it? We believe that a straight key is better to use up to the point where you're proficient at 18 words a minute. And why? We feel there's a better mind-hand connection when you're making the dots and dashes yourself as opposed to a machine that's doing it electronically for you. Now, are we cast in stone on this and totally inflexible? The answer is no. The final decision is up to you. But, you know, there are cases that we recommend using a keyer if you have carpal tunnel or some other injuries to your arm or your hand. That would probably be the better way to go, but that's our recommendation. We feel the same way about bugs and cootie keys. Those are sophisticated instruments, and it's better to use those things when you're at the intermediate level at least. Okay, Jim.
Fear of CW. This is my slide because one of the reasons I joined the club was that I did have a fear of using the CW I had learned over the years. And I had been out of the hobby for a few years. And when I came back in, I could still remember the code, but I could not remember the format that you used on the air, the protocol that you used. So I came to the club and I just dove in and I started to learn it back up again. And what we found when I started talking to other club members is that, fear of using CW on the air, the first, as you're being new and getting on the air and using it for the first few times, is really rampant through I guess just about every CW operator. There's a handful that are not, but most people are a little afraid and nervous in getting on the air. So we understand it. I understand it especially, and we combat it. And we combat it by, we use three things. We use camaraderie. We make friends within our classes so that we're not afraid to make mistakes in front of each other. Through education, when I say education, I mean we teach you what to send and when, and we teach you what's going to be coming to you with each exchange. So now you don't have that fear of the unknown. Now you know what's coming and when and what you're supposed to send and when you're supposed to send it. And then throughout all of that, we focus on keeping our classes fun. And we not only do we just keep our learning classes fun, but we even have classes that are just focused on having fun using CW. So that's how we combat the fear of CW. Howard?
It's this issue of fear. I never knew that anybody was afraid of getting on the air until we started this club about 4.5 years ago. Because when we were younger, when I got in the air in the 1960s, when we were kids, nobody ever talked about that. And I just thought that, everybody who learned CW would just jump on it and want to start using what they were practicing. But we came to realize that's not the case, and the anxiety about making your first contact runs very deep. So we engineered our entire club to deal with this. We understand it and we get it. So we get people to relax, we get people to be comfortable, and eventually it does happen. What's next, Jim?
Getting on the air, QSO protocol. That's me again. So when I spoke earlier about the fear of CW, I said, we try to break through that fear of them first getting on the air. And one of the things that we try to do early on is get people on the air as soon as possible. And it's important because the longer that we delay getting on the air, the more that fear and that anxiety is going to increase. So how do we get through it? We teach the back and forth QSO protocol. Now, CW QSO is very structured, at least for the first couple exchanges. It's extremely structured. Now, some people might think, well, that's boring, but I think that that's pretty exciting because whenever you're new, you don't want to have 1,000 choices, especially when you're getting on the air using Morse code, right? You want to know that that what's going to happen, and you want it to be, hopefully you want it to be similar with each QSO. So that's what happens whenever you learn QSO protocol. You learn how it works, you learn the back and forth, and we teach that. And the QSO is set up in a way that whenever each operator knows what they're supposed to do, the back and forth is like, I imagine it like a never-ending tennis match or a ping pong game, or where it's back and forth. One person knows what they're supposed to do, and the other person knows what they're supposed to do. And it really, I guess, I almost think of it like a dance, like ballroom dancing, where you have these complicated dances, but as long as everyone knows what they're supposed to do, it turns out to be a beautiful thing to watch. And in Morse code, it's a beautiful thing to hear and to take part in. So that's getting on the air, and that's just a little bit about QSO protocol. Howard?
Yeah, actually, we came up with a protocol to give everybody a structure for what they're supposed to do, because most people say, well, what do I send and what? So we teach that what we call is protocol 1, which is your first exchange. First you'll do RST, then you'll send your QTH, and then you'll send your name, and then you'll come back, and once that is done, you can relax a little bit and say what your rig is and what your weather is in protocol 2, and then protocol 3 would be thanks for the QSO and 73s. Now, If you're sending about 12 words a minute, 15 words a minute, by the time you get done with all of that, you got a good 15, 20 minutes under your belt. So once people see that, and we have that written down, and they can have that piece of paper right in front of them, which is a matter of fact, something that Jim has very cleverly and decoratively done, it relaxes people and takes care of some of that fear we were speaking about before. Okay, Jim, what's next?
This is for you, Howard, head copy.
Okay, head copy. So here's another question. How do you head copy, right? How do you teach it? How do you learn it? Sometimes when you go on these forums also about CW, you hear people asking this question, you get another 5,000 answers. Most of those answers give me a headache. I can't really read through it. So the only way that I could teach head copy is how I do it, because it's a very personal and personally cerebral thing. But how do you show someone else to do it? I can only say how it works for me. It might not work that way for the next person, but this is what I do. I head copy in what I call a multifaceted way. The weakest part of, let's say, the 5 pathways that I receive CW in would be the actual signal of the tone. That's just a carrier to get it to my head. Now, once it's in your head, what do you do with it? Well, you have to hold on to what you're decoding. So I teach that you got to put the decoded letters on a moving ticker tape, like this ticker tape that was just moving a few seconds ago. The type of ticker tape you see on a building in Times Square, or maybe a crawl underneath CNN. You have to put it on some sort of moving conveyance. Some people can't do that, so I tell them, okay, try and put it on a blackboard, but you got to put it somewhere or you're going to forget that. Another thing I do is I embrace the vibrations of what I'm hearing. And I imagine that I put those vibrations of the sounds on my chest, right underneath my neck. So another thing I do is I visually look at the decoded letters and I see the dashes and the dots. Now, people always come to me and they say, hey, Howard, I learned CW the wrong way. I've made a mortal sin. I'm counting. We hear that all the time. I'm counting. It's terrible. I say there's nothing wrong with that. I count all the time. I count visually. So these are some of the pathways I use, and all of these things put together in QRM and QRN, when a signal is hard to copy or it's fading in and out, kind of all work together, and you use different parts of your brain and these white matter pathways to decode. Now, does some of this sound fantastic to some people who've never done CW? Yes. Was a little bit difficult and maybe a little bit making me self-conscious to describe these things in my head copy class? The answer is yes, but after a few weeks, I started to hear some students tell me, hey, Howard, you know, I had one of those pathways appear. So I was convinced after a little while that that was the right thing to do, and that's what I do in my head copy class. Okay, long-winded discussion there and explanation, but it takes a while. What's next, Jim?
Let's see, next is increasing speed. I'll talk about this one for a moment. So we get a lot of questions about increasing speed, and people say, do I need to get faster? And how do I get faster if I do need to get faster? So really, in short, the answer is no. You don't have to get faster. You can have wonderful QSOs at 5 words a minute, 10, 15, 20, 30 words. Well, maybe I can't go to 30 words a minute, but I can go to 20 or 25 words a minute. And you can have wonderful QSOs and all that range. Of course, the slower ones are going to take longer and the faster ones will be a little bit quicker. But what we find is most people come into the club, they just want to learn it. And then once they learn it, they want to get faster. So, if they do want to get faster, we have classes focused on increasing your speed, on breaking through different plateaus you may run into, and how to send better, clean up your sending. So we have classes that focus all on that. In the QSO class that I teach, I tell everybody that if you really want to increase your QSO speed, Okay, you've learned the characters, but now you got to learn the protocol because you got to know how to use the characters in the structure. You learn those two, and your speed is just naturally gonna speed up. So those are some of the things about increasing speed. Howard?
Yeah, that's right, Jim. And speed. What is speed to me? You know, there are plenty of QSOs these days to be done between 10 words a minute and 15 words a minute. Do you really need to speed up higher than that? The answer is no. If you want to, yes. Where does speed come in these days? Well, contesting requires speed because the operators are sending somewhere between 25 and 40 words a minute, depending on the guy. And the same thing when you're chasing DX. This upcoming DXpedition to Bouvet Island, which is going to be very exciting for sure. They're going to be sending over 30 words a minute. So that's where you might need your speed. But otherwise, there's plenty of QSOs to be done without being a speed demon. Now, what do? I like to send at 24 words a minute. So you might ask, well, where does he come up with 24? Why not 20? Why not 25? Every word per minute above 20 words a minute actually sounds different and demands a different type of concentration. To me, at 24, I'm still comfortable to the point where all the CW is going into my subconscious mind. I don't have to spend a lot of brain power on it. And I can still do other things like take a phone call, balance my checkbook, read a magazine, and still completely copy in my subconscious mind what's going on with the QSO. When you start going up higher than that, you got to start concentrating. And if you have a QSO at 30 and 35 words a minute and you're not trained at that particular speed and you got to concentrate, it gets a little bit tiring after a while. And anyhow, if you call CQ at 30 words a minute these days with the amount of operators of CW and the skill levels we have these days, you're going to be pretty lonely. I wouldn't recommend calling any faster than about 24 or 25. So that's my take on speed, Jim. What do we got next?
Next, we are going to talk about some of the challenges with learning the code.
Yeah, the challenges. Well, this means for our guests here that we're halfway through. You've made it halfway through once we had the challenges slide. And we're going to talk about these next 5 areas, which are overstudy, errors, the famous plateauing, sending, and Jim's favorite clause there, expectation management, which comes from his Air Force days, which he taught me, and I liked it so much we put it into our program here. So take it away, Jim.
All right. Well, first I'll talk about overstudy. There's so many resources now that it's overwhelming if you're a new person learning CW. There's lots of websites and there's lots of apps, and they're all wonderful. But what we want to make sure is that you don't overstudy, because I mean you could be studying 24/7 practically. You have it on your phone, on your computer. You could watch things on YouTube as well, listen to stuff in your car. But you get to a point to where of oversaturation, and you'll burn out. And so we want to make sure that we encourage people to study 20 minutes at a time when you're new, and then just maybe do that twice a day if you want to bump it up. You can do more than that if you want, but that's what we recommend, and that will keep you from burning out. And the second thing that we're worried about is that we get students sometimes that get so into these apps and websites and things on their phones that takes over their interest over getting on the air. Now, I don't know, they're trying to get really good. They want to get to like 90%, 95%, or 100% or something like that before they get on the air. But really what that turns into is an excuse to wait to get on the air. And as I said earlier, we really want to get people on the air as soon as possible. And we don't want them to become a professional student and just getting really good at all these programs that teach you teach you the code, right? And so that's the problem that we want to watch out for is overstudy and getting too much into trying to be too perfect. Howard, what do you say about getting on the air, about how perfect you got to be before you think?
Yeah,
on the air.
Jim, plenty to say about that. First of all, we like to get our students on the air within 3 or 4 months of starting with us. And, you know, people think they have to be perfect, that there's some sort of CW police out there that's going to be watching and criticizing and giving you a grade or something like that. But that's not the case. CW operators are some of the kindest and most forgiving in all of our hobby. And, you know, let's give an example like this. Let's say you're making a contact and you're working a VE3 like you guys up in Ontario. You get the RST, you're having a little trouble hearing the QTH. You only got the first two letters, TO. Now, anybody who knows any geography knows that if VE3 is telling you it's QTH and you hear a lot of T's and you hear a lot of O's, it's got to be Toronto. So you envision in your mind it's Toronto, and it will appear in your mind that it is Toronto. It's certainly not going to be Tallahassee. So, you can anticipate what the words are going to be. And you want to know something? Even if you miss that it's Toronto, who cares? Look the guy up on QRZ. So we say to people, forget being a professional student, stop with the apps and all of these things and the computer generated code, and get on the air and learn it the right way. Getting on the air is the glue that makes all of this learning coalesce and come together. Okay, Jim.
All right. Well, that's overstudy. Next, I'm going to just talk a little bit about some common errors that students make when they're learning. Opposite characters, similar characters, and the change, and something about how we change the tone. Opposite characters are characters where the dits and the das are exactly opposite of each other. An example would be a K. K is da, da, da. I think I have my, and R is, so K and R are actually opposite of each other. So students get concerned, but for me, I get excited, and I think that's good, because whenever it tells me that your brain is starting to put these things together, maybe not for the right reasons, but they've noticed that these two characters are similar, and and you're mixing them up, and that happens to many students. Something they work through really early on, and there's nothing to worry about. And as I said, I'm encouraged when that happens. Similar characters is the next one, and like an S sounds like this, and an H sounds like this. So 3 dits versus 4 dits, and a 6 and a B are similar, and a J and a 1 are similar. And what that is, whenever you're just so close and you're missing it, it's just your ear is still getting used to the sound. And that's something also that the students will work through, because the more you hear it and the more you experience it, the more those things will start to become more and more clear to you. And lastly, we've had, myself included, I was in the Air Force for 30 years working with aircraft. And so I've had some hearing loss. And I find that when if I'm having trouble distinguishing a character or a string of code, sometimes I'll just change the tone. And for me, if I bring the tone down to a lower tone, it's easier for me to hear. And so that's something that we use with students as well, because a lot of our students are older and many do have some hearing loss. And we found that this is a really good way to, you find that area that works for you. Howard?
All of that is very important information, Jim. And, I could just give this one example that I do in these presentations, about making errors. It's okay to make mistakes. One thing we tell people not to do is, sometimes when people start out, they make a mistake and they think they got to send a string of dots to correct that mistake. When if I make a mistake, unless I really think it's going to change the entire context of whatever I'm sending, I don't bring any notice to the fact that I even made an error. And if I do think I flubbed a word and it's got to be really something that's important, then I'll just repeat the word. But I don't accentuate errors. And, when we first started the club, we had a young lady in the club, and she was learning for the first time and sending. And every few seconds she'd make a mistake. She'd say the word sorry. She'd be sending and sorry, sending, making a mistake, sorry. And I heard this on Zoom. I said, oh my God. And right away, I stopped the class and I said, you want to know something? That's the last time that anybody in the Long Island CW Club is going to say they're sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. Everybody makes mistakes. And she's now an advanced operator. And she actually runs a net. She's doing fantastic. So that's the way we feel about errors.
That's
Okay,
right.
Jim.
Never say you're sorry.
That's right.
This
Never
is-
say you're sorry.
This is yours, Howard. How about reaching plateaus?
Yeah, you know, Jim, one thing with this new computer view, the slides are bleached in a way. Unfortunately, the contrast is not good enough to see these beautiful flags you made, you
Oh,
know?
really? Maybe
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what would do that to the PowerPoint. We'll have to
Yeah,
look into it.
I noticed that all through the PowerPoint, but on top of these beautiful plateaus are word per minute signs that we can't really see. But Jim made this. I like this slide. It's one of my favorite. But anyhow, what's a plateau? You know, a lot of people come and they say, I'm stuck. I can't get past like 15 words a minute or 18, the famous plateaus in the teens of their practice. So what do? You know, did you ever see in a baseball game where somebody comes up to the plate and they start swinging 2, 3 bats to warm up, and then finally they'll drop one bat and then they'll warm up with 2 and swing, and then when they get up to the plate, of course, they only have 1, with the theory that they'll be able to get around the ball with 1 bat a lot easier now that they were training for those few seconds with 3 bats. So we call that periodicity training. I didn't come up with that. One of our teachers did, Hal, WA2AKV, and I like that name. So we incorporated that into our teaching. And how do we break someone that's stuck at 15? Well, we push them up to 18. Well, let's say, Howard, I can't copy at 18. What are you doing? I said, don't worry. You'll get up there. Then we'll bring you down to 10. Then we'll bring you back up to 15. We'll shake you up a little bit and we'll break that glass ceiling. So by adjusting speeds and starting off classes as we do, sometimes at twice the speed that the class is going to be taught at, it kind of gets the brain and the ear set to be a little bit more resilient. And that's how we break through these plateaus. Okay, Jim.
All right. Next is going to be, I'm going to talk a little bit about sending and what we go through whenever we're new. 3 things, or actually 4 things here. The first thing is whenever you're new and you're learning to send, one of the hardest things, not that it will stop you from moving forward, but one of the challenges is sending consistently. Whenever you're sending a character that has 3 dits in a row or 4 dits in a row, you want to hit those spaced out properly. Whenever you're sending a character that has lots of here's a number 9. So you have a lot of DAWs in a row. So you don't want it to sound with a short DAW and a long one and a short one, because it confuses the person who's receiving your message. So it's something that everyone eventually picks up, but it's one of the things that we have to kind of learn and help out as instructors to get that consistency. The second thing is really important is spacing. Whenever you're new, you're focusing so much on your characters and your words that sometimes you forget to put spaces between your words, and so your things can kind of run together. So we teach really to really think about when it's time to send a space and to mentally send a space. I actually sometimes, if will tap my foot in between words depending on the speed that I'm going at. Just if I really want to make sure that I'm clear between my words, I'll tap my foot just to make sure I give myself enough room so I don't run my words together. So spacing is something that we teach, and and different methods, and just through practice we work that out. And then one method that we found that really works well is sometimes it's good if you have a character that has a DAW at the end, a dash at the end, and you're having trouble sending it. You can, if you accentuate that last one, it helps. And an example is I had a class once where I had a student whose call sign was what was it? It was a K4 or something, and he couldn't send the 4. Or no, actually there was 2 DAWs on the end, but whatever the character was, that last character, he kept on missing it. He kept on missing it, and he would send out either too little DAWs or too many. And so we said, hey, accentuate that last one. Let us hear that ending of that character. And by doing that, it was in his mind somehow, and through that action, he was able to complete the character. And and we use that in our training as well. So accentuating the DAWs sometimes helps out through help sending. And now the whole thing, the most important thing of these three things is really to relax. Now you see the picture on the left of the wooden fist. It's an old Army training video, and they have a giant, probably a paper mache, a hand and arm to kind of to show that it's just like a piece of wood. It's stiff, and if just like anything, if you're tense, you can't process well, and you can't think well. You definitely can't receive code well if you're tense. And if you're tense and your muscles are tense, you definitely can't send well either, because you have to be relaxed and be able to send that way. Because if you're tense, you're just going to mess up your dits and your das. So as I said earlier, in all of our classes, we try to keep them fun. We try to build up camaraderie, and mainly one of the main reasons for that is to get students relaxed so that they can be in a better mindset to learn and to send. So that's a little bit about sending, Howard.
Yeah, I really think that accentuating the dashes or the DAWs at the end is so very important, because as Jim said, most students have choppy fists in the beginning, especially if they're not on the air. They don't really hear what a fist sounds like. By listening to computer generated code, it's just always perfect, but that doesn't teach you how it really should sound. And the way we cure that is just to let them hang on that last dash. So Jim, give me an accentuated K. Give me a normal K and then an accentuated one.
Okay, here's a normal K. And then here's an accentuated.
Now, that's a little bit longer, that last dash on the K. And nobody ever complains about sending with accentuated dashes at the end. But it really helps, determine for the other person what you're sending and when you're pausing. And especially if there's a QRM, a longer dash will give the mind a little bit clearer picture of what's being sent. And by teaching students to accentuate like that, it really snaps them right out of that choppy CW, which is very common. Okay, Jim.
All right, now I get to talk about your favorite slide, expectation management.
That's right.
In a nutshell, expectation management is really is exactly what it says. We talk to our students and manage their expectations. And what we mean is that some students think that they should be able to learn this very quickly, and within a month, maybe some can, but generally it takes more time than that, and it doesn't happen overnight. We tell them that to be patient, and we talked about avoiding burnout. We don't want them to practice too much, but some people will push it a little bit. And I've had several meetings with students that feel like, hey, I'm giving up. I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I'm learning. I don't think this is working. And of all, it hasn't been a lot, maybe 5 or 6 over the last couple of years. But of all the students that I did meet with, it all came down to the fact that they were actually right where they were doing great. They were right where they needed to be. Their expectations for themselves were so high that they felt like they weren't meeting their own expectations. So that's in a nutshell expectation management. We remind everyone that this is an oral language. You gotta hear it, and you're learning a whole new sound, and so it's going to take some time. And just have to be slow and steady. Practice every day. Have fun, and before you know it, you're going to be zipping right along. Howard?
Society today is always snaps. Everything has got to be instantaneous. That's the way people are now trained to think. I had somebody, Jim, today coming to inquire about the club, and his question was, how long is it going to take me to get on the air? Well, I have a standard answer for that of 3 to 4 months, but that really depends on how committed you are to your practice regimen and what your personal abilities are. But you have to ask yourself, if CW is an oral language, just like Spanish, for example, how long would it take you if you were learning Spanish or Japanese or whatever? to be able to speak to somebody and be confident and relaxed that you could do it. It would take a long time. CW takes time too. It's not something that's going to be an instantaneous gratification. So if you want it, you stick with it and you'll get it. It's like anything else in life. The more you practice, the better you'll be. Okay, Jim.
All right, let's have some fun.
Okay. So what is this? This is my favorite video. The Three Stooges doing some CW. And this is an example of what we do with our students when they're not paying attention.
Shortwave, take it down, quick. What's it say? Ah, shut up. You too?
Well, we can't hit our students because it's over Zoom. But, one of the things that I like, well, first of all, everybody who knows me knows I'm an extreme Three Stooges fan. I've even gone to some of their places in California where they filmed some episodes. But having said that, in this particular video, the CW is perfect 1930s hand-sent CW in four-letter code groups and four-letter, consonants that they're sending. It's just perfectly done, and it's just beautiful to listen to. Just beautiful. Okay, Jim. All right, what is this?
This is, let me make sure I got the right one. Yes, this is the spark gap transmitter.
Right. We were lucky enough to buy from a local ham here on Long Island a recreation of a spark gap transmitter. And it has original parts in it. There's a helix coil and oil-filled capacitors, and George W2KRM built this, and we were able to acquire it. Now, the main reason I wanted this is that Ham Radio University, some of you might have heard about this because it's online now, was an in-person event, and I thought this would be great when we set up our table. But unfortunately, we've never been live at Ham Radio University for the past 3 years because of COVID. So it's just sitting on the desk in my son's room. But here's how it works.
And as it goes along, you'll notice that the RF takes over the cell phone that's taking the picture halfway through. So here it goes.
Here we go, starting George Flanagan's spark gap machine. I like the way this thing sounds, the way it's heating up. So here we go. I'll send a CQ. Sign WB2UZE. I certainly wouldn't put my finger over there, but it's really cool. Really cool. Unfortunately, that was the last time this thing has been on. We have to do some mods on it so that we keep the AC power away from everybody. But we'll get to it one day. All right, Jim, what's next?
Telegraph sounder.
Okay, the sounder. We'll play this now. Hello, everyone out there in TV land. This is Howard WB2UZE, and I'm in my shack here where we have mostly modern equipment and my dog Chomper on my lap. But I'm here to demonstrate today a Morse code sounder that's from the late 1800s. It's something that I found in a basement of an old ham shack, and there was a lot of stuff down there, and this was just peeking out at us. We were lucky to find it, and it's in perfect condition. Most hams are really not able to understand CW with clicking. They're all used to tones. But some of us can, and I'm here to demonstrate how it sounds. I'm using a JT38 World War II vintage key. And here's the sounder. So let's send a CQ. That's CQ, CQ, and then from W2 LCW. Again. Can even send with my dog licking my hand. There we go. You know, Jim, we have actually built and developed and ready to go a device that will take the sounds from your speaker and be translated and put into the sounder, and it'll move the sounder so that you can actually communicate with the sounder instead of hearing the dots and dashes over the air.
I'd love to try that so I can send code and my wife won't hear it.
You know, it's something we got to get going. It's just been in the back burner of the club because we've been working on so many other projects, of which we'll speak about in a minute, but we can do that.
Next is the instructograph.
The instructograph. Let's play this one. Okay, what is the instructograph? This is a 1930s code practice device that we had restored, and this is the way I took my license in 1965, you know, in the FCC building in New York City, and it plays as a practice thing, and it's got perforated tapes, and it's a remarkable unit. We got this thing going with the help of some people in the club, and they're from the late 1930s. Okay, Jim. All right, why don't you talk a little bit about keys?
Okay, well, let me, I don't know if you can see if I do this. Are you able to see my picture with the key in
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Well, here's a straight key. I thought I'd just show a couple. So this is gosh, I forgot the maker of this one. Well, it doesn't matter. It's similar to a J38. Oh, General Electric, I think, or Signal Electric key. That's what it is. So that's a straight key, and that's what generally how a straight key looks. And we encourage people to use a straight key when they first start learning, because there's something about your hand making each dit and da yourself, and it kind of helps you with the learning.
What year is that from, Jim?
This, I don't have a year on this one. This one was refurbished by a Ham K3EY that takes these old keys, and he doesn't keep them originally. He kind of makes them fancy.
Where did you find him?
I found him on QRZ. He's always got something interesting for sale.
Huh.
So here, you were talking about a keyer before, and here's a picture of a paddle that you would use with a keyer. And with a paddle, one side, if you push on one side of the key, it makes dits, and if you push on the other side, it makes das as it goes through the keyers. The keyer is actually what makes those. And so this is something, what do we say, Howard, that you want to move to a keyer probably once you get up closer to 20 words a minute from a straight key, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you know, because it's very hard to be sending above 18 or 20 words a minute on a straight key. It can be done, but it's an awful lot of pounding on your wrist.
And then lastly, let me show a bug. This one's kind of, I don't know if it's going to fit on my display thing here. Let's see.
I love this home shopping network thing twirling around. You got it, Jim. This
Yeah.
is really
So this
pretty
is-
cool.
Thank you. So this is actually a 100-year anniversary bug made by a Vibraplex. And what you see on the back there, there's a thing sticking up, right? That's called a Verispeed adapter, a Verispeed adapter. And that allows you, to push a weight kind of back farther, and it really slows down the key for you. So if you didn't have that on there, you just have a weight down on the bottom bar. But with this, I'm able to slow it down to maybe 12 words a minute. Talk to some people that are newer operators without going too quick. So that's a straight key, a paddle, and a bug.
when we were kids, we didn't have these additional weights, and the way you slowed down the bug or got to use the faster dashes and the slower dots is you developed like what they call a banana boat swing or a whole
Mhm.
personality on the bug. And we grew up hearing bugs like that, but nobody really sends like that now. Now people want to send on a bug like and make it sound like a keyer, so it's lost its romanticism. I have the Bengali HST, which is in the upper left-hand corner. My head copy class gave that to me as a wonderful gift. And it's a single lever coming out, and that has really helped my wrist. Because, look, I'm going on 71, and your hands don't feel as young as they used to be. And, if you have any type of arthritis in them, it doesn't really go very well with pounding brass. So there's very little action on the HST.
I threw my HST up there. Mine's kind of dirty, but it's probably not as clean as yours. But that's what the HST looks like.
I can't tell you, since that has such a great touch and very little action between the two contacts of the dashes and the dots, you save your wrist. Where that Vibraplex paddle, that Jim, that's like heavy metal, and you slam that thing back and forth, and it's a totally different experience. I can't tolerate that anymore. Okay, Jim.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Next is about our club.
All right, I'll take this. So the numbers speak for itself there about our membership and how far we've branched out and how many classes we have. We're running, actually at this point, that's a little bit outdated, Jim. We have 80 classes and forums per week. Those are our weekly classes. We've taught over 400 kids so far, and we have over 150 YLs in our club. YLs are a very important part of the club. And I think as far as Canadians, I think we have 126. So we have it in every province. So always glad to have the Canadians in our club.
Here's some classes.
Yeah, why don't you take this, Jim?
Oh, sure. This is a shot of a lot of the classes we had over the last year, but it's always changing. Howard's always coming up with new classes and he takes feedback from teachers and students who said, "Hey, could we try this or try that?" So we're always trying to do something fun. I think the tech class that I teach is the QSO 101 you see down there at the bottom, and I teach you how to take everything you learned, as we spoke about earlier, all the characters, and put it into the proper format to use on the air. Howard's famous class has been that head copy class that you see a little bit higher. We get a lot of seasoned operators coming in to try to learn to head copy and polish up their head copy. And we have Rag Chew. We have a Fun Friday class. We have so just unlimited types of classes. But then if you look on the right side, the presentations, we have something for everybody. Every Friday we have every Monday we have a radio and related technology forum where we have guest speakers that come in and talk about just a variety of things, CW or QRP or radio related. And then we have, I'll let you read the list. There's just so much, Howard. But what do you have to say about all of our
Yeah, I
presentations?
mean, every day we have a presentation going on that's either related to ham radio or actual ham radio. So Monday night we have the doctors in. We have Greg WA1JXR. Man's a genius, and he can answer any question you have on ham radio or antennas. And we also, as Jim mentioned, have that radio and related technology forum. Yesterday, we had somebody speaking on the ghost signals that you hear on shortwave radio. Saturday, we have a portable operations forum, then followed by a boat anchor forum. I mean, just about every day we have something going on. So, we wanted to make this fun. So how do you have fun while you're learning Morse code, where there's basic rote learning? You have to have a community and people to make friends with. This was great during COVID, and it saved a lot of people. And, we continue it today. That's why when anybody asks me to do a presentation like you guys did, that Steve came to me, I always say yes, because I know how much work it takes to get presenters. It's a lot of work. You have to go through the numbers to be able to get people, especially if you need someone every day. Okay, Jim.
This is our new slide, Howard.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you for me. So, students with challenges. One of the main facets of the Long Island CW Club is to try and help people that are not as fortunate as the majority of us. It's, to me personally, the most important thing we can do. I'm not interested in increasing membership and getting thousands and thousands of members. Okay, if that happens, that's fine. But I'm interested in doing what we can do to help others. So a little bit of a rundown. The device you see we released last month, this is a vibrational haptic device that will send the CW to the palm of your hand in vibrations. It also has LED lights that go off at the same time. So if you have any hearing impairment, or you're deaf for that matter, you will be able to decode CW. And this is a very successful device, and it's working fine. We also find that it works well with people who are not hearing impaired, because you heard me talk before about multiple pathways in receiving CW and decoding, especially vibrations. So if you're getting vibrations to the hand and at the same time you're hearing it, you have different pathways coming into your mind, and it's good. So we also have programs and teachers that are able to teach autistic adults. We've had success with that. Some video of that is up on our website. And right now, we're going over our own CW trainer, and we're going to make it accessible for the blind. And this is also very important to us too. So this is something that we wanted to talk to you about here. And we just added this slide because these are finally developments that are in place. Okay, Jim.
All right, that's all of our slides, Howard.
Oh, really? We're done, huh?
That's it. Now I got to figure out how to, there we go. Stop my share.
Yeah, well, that's it, Steve. You know, we love Q&A. We like that more than talking for 45 minutes straight. So if anybody has any questions, we'll stay here as long as you like.
Yeah, I'll open it up to the floor and online if there's any questions.
Yeah, Howard, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Ori, VE3XW. My throat's a little gone from an allergy. But do you recall, we're about the same vintage for licensing. I think you got licensed about a year earlier than I did. Probably the same FCC field office in Manhattan. But do you recall the bottom 5K of 40 meters? Those lightning slingers that probably hypnotized us when we were first getting into the hobby.
Okay, you know, there's a little bit of an echo in the room. You said, like, what type of people were on the bottom 5 kilohertz of 40?
Lightning slingers. You gotta come closer to the mic.
You mean the fast operators?
Yes, there were a bunch of they were commercial operators and railway telegraphers who had their licenses, who used to send it 60 words a minute upwards.
Well, you know, if you remember back in the day in the 60s and the 70s, these guys were all over the place. So it was really nothing special. To me, I never thought twice about it. As a matter of fact, when I decided to teach, and when I went to a local radio club, you know, to talk about it, I thought everybody who was in CW was sending and copying at 40 or 50 words a minute, because that's where we all got to when we started out in the hobby. And I didn't realize that that was not the case. So I have to admit, when I got up, I didn't, when I was getting up, I didn't think there was anything special about that. Now it's a rarity. The only time you're going to hear anything like 50 words a minute on the bands is a few guys that get on 7018 in the evening time, and sometimes in the morning. One of them happens to be in the club, and there are 3 or 4 of them that are sending at that speed, and they're not using computers.
I was just wondering if you recall that. I don't recall that, as I was just getting started around 64, 65.
And I was a rather young fella, and that really impressed me because it was beyond my comprehension until I fixed up a tape recorder that I could record at fast speed and play it back at a very slow speed, just to get it. And even then it was about 15 words a minute, which was pushing it for me at the time. And then, well, it was commercial Morse too. So
Oh, you mean they were using American Morse code?
American Morse, yeah.
Oh, wow.
These guys, that's why I say the bottom 5 kilocycles, pardon me, of 40 meters, that was kind of their segment of the band. And they were, it was mesmerizing listening to them. I was just wondering if you remember that.
No, that I don't remember. I don't really remember ever hearing American Morse code on the air. So you got me on that. Now, for those of us that don't know the difference, it's like a totally different language. There are very few letters in common between the American Morse code that was used, you know, on the telegraph lines and, you know, at times in the 1800s and maybe into the early 20th century, and the International Morse code. Very little in common. There's a lot more dots in the American Morse code than in what we're used to today.
Howard, you're in New York, are you?
Yeah, I'm in Long Island.
I see the connection to the Three Stooges. They have your first name is their last name, and they're all from Brooklyn. Well, except Larry. Larry Fine is from
New Jersey.
he's in New Jersey, Pennsylvania or something, but the rest of them are all from Brooklyn.
I have their books and everything, so it's but that particular clip, it's priceless. Have you ever seen that before?
No.
No. Okay, so I'm glad that was the first time for you guys.
What did they say? What was said?
It was just letters, 4 letters at a time. So let's say LKV and then a space, and then there would be some other 4 letters. They were all consonants. There were no vowels.
Okay, so yeah, they weren't trying to tell the secret code or anything that
No,
somebody could
no.
recognize it. No.
But it was real Morse code. I would say that 90% of the code that you hear in movies is really not Morse code, and 10% of the time it was. But the older the movie it is, the closer it is to the 30s and to World War II, the more chances it really is Morse code.
I thought it said, make sure to buy your Ovaltine.
So do you remember the movie A Night to Remember?
No.
Oh, really? Kenneth More, 1958, is on the Titanic. Very good movie.
With those Titanic movies. Yeah, that had real Morse code in it. Yes, it did.
Authentic.
Okay. A Night to Remember was the one that was in black and white, that was real, like almost like a documentary, right?
Yes.
Yep. That was real CW. Yep.
Yep. That was,
Yep.
You could see they weren't the ones sending it, but it was absolutely authentic equipment. The sound of the spark gaps were authentic, and the Morse code was absolutely authentic. That was I thought quite a nice touch.
We have a guy in the club that is an American Morse code expert, and he actually was the one that Steven Spielberg went to with the Abe Lincoln movie to consult on what type of equipment they should have for the Morse code scene there, where Lincoln gets some sort of message from one of his generals. And I thought that was really interesting.
Very impressive. Question? Any other questions, guys? Oh, go ahead, Earl.
Well, you mentioned not over reliance on various apps, but for those of us that need a crutch, are there any apps on the internet that are better than others that you would suggest or caution us to steer away from?
We have in our club Dropbox many folders, and one of them I copied and pasted every single thread that people made about the different apps over a 4-year period, and there are hundreds. And then I rated them by popularity. So from what I remember, the most popular one out of everything is LCWO. And then now a lot of people are switching over to Morse Ninja. by Kurt Zogelman. And then from there, there's hundreds. Doesn't really matter what app you like or use, rather. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. Jim, what did you use when you were practicing?
Yeah, I learned before they had computers. I used what's his name, Mr. Ham Radio, and he's down in Southern California.
Oh, Gordon West.
Yeah, I listened to Gordon West cassettes. That's how I learned it. 5 words a minute, long lessons.
Yeah, I used a record. I still have it. I still have my '78 record.
But like you said, the key is just whatever you're using, you just use it long enough till you can get on the air. And when you get on the air, that's where the real practice begins, because that's the QSO is what you're training for. So you got to do QSOs to get better. So the apps are great, but just once you can understand, I'd 80%, 70% of what you're sending, then of whatever the app is telling you, I'd say go ahead and make the transition. Get a free, and you don't have to go in the wild. You can get a friend, call me, send me an email, and I'll meet you on the air, and we'll get on Zoom and we'll work through it. But the important thing is to get on the air.
I can give a current example of something from 2 weeks ago that happened in the club. There was a young lady in the club. I think she's been with us for 3 years, 2.5 years, and she really wasn't getting her CW. It just wasn't happening no matter how many classes. And then all of a sudden, she started taking a different type of class, but she was combining that with getting on the air. She's going to force herself to get on the air. Well, she set out on a mission to do this SKCC marathon, which means that to get that marathon award, she's got to do 100 1-hour QSOs in CW. 100 1-hour QSOs on CW with a straight key. I was her number 100 10 days ago. Now, when you do the math, 100 QSOs of an hour are equivalent to about 4,000 QSOs of a few seconds that you might do in a contest or something like that. But whatever it is, it's a tremendous effort. And this young lady is head copying now. She couldn't get it. But because she decided to get on the air and did it like to the nth degree, I mean, she's getting into the 20 word a minute area now. It's incredible. Didn't involve any apps. The breakthrough was getting on the air.
Yeah, we try to, here at the Science Center, we try at the VE3 OSC, the demonstration center, when we have the only real hands-on demonstration we can do. Ward, who's online there, can back me up on this, are having people send, they're basically starting with their names. There's a chart with Morse code, we have them send their names and they're thrilled. They think we're doing something magic, excuse me, when we're copying their names, and try to convince them, no, I know Morse code. You have to do it right or we don't get it. And it's especially kids, but some of the adults too get really very, very childlike when it comes to this. And we've had a couple of people we know have gotten their tickets out of that. We try to tell them Morse code doesn't define us, but it is an awfully fun part of the hobby, and we're probably the only people in the world still using it on a regular basis.
It is a lot of fun, isn't it? And that's why I do it. It's all about I just have more fun making QSOs with CW than any other mode. It's just a lot of fun.
Well, the old licensing up here, you could do nothing but from 30 megahertz down, you could do nothing but Morse code for the first 6 months. If you went to the DOC, Department of Communications, with your log and proved that you've been active, after 6 months, they'd give you a 10-meter phone endorsement. But even then, you'd sort of say, well, why would I go to phone? This is too much fun. Now here, I tend to have gotten rather lazy. And truth be told, you don't want to be doing too much Morse code around people who have not even barely casual interest in what you're doing, they won't understand what you're doing. So you give them the voice part and let them do the Morse code to demonstrate to themselves how easy it really is. So that's kind of, yeah. So it is fun. I really have to get back into it. Jeez.
You know, it's interesting you say about the names. It is a real crowd pleaser. So whenever we do those in-person exhibitions, let's say a young kid comes up with their father or something like that, the kid will whisper his name to somebody who's next to the key, and I'll stand about 10 feet away. And so he'll whisper his name and then they'll send the name like John. And then I'll hear, you know, John and decode that. And the kids go crazy. They go crazy. Such a simple thing, but it's so impressionable.
Never thought of that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Never thought of it. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we do. So try that next time. It's like magic.
Yeah, because some of the members that are part of this club are part of the demonstration station at VE3OC. That's the Ontario Science Center. That's actually where we're in.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like Ward and Ori beside me here, you know, they actually volunteer and man the station and operate from it, you know, weekends and certain days, right? So it's certainly an opportunity. It's a great idea.
Well, I think Ian, Ward, Ian has a copy of CW, does he not?
Yes, he does. And Jean does as well, but she's a little bit slower on that considering Jean is just almost 100 years old.
We'll try that out.
Yeah, it's a
And
good
see if
idea.
that's thank you. That's a great idea.
You're quite welcome.
Well, I hope we got the point across that if you want to learn, you can. We're teaching people every day, and we're making lots of CW operators every year. And so there's really there's nothing that can stop you. Even if you can't hear, we have that haptic device now, right, Howard?
Yeah. So there's no excuses, right?
No excuse.
No excuses.
And I can plug for you guys. I mean, so how I found them was during COVID last year. I signed up, I think in January, to their club and went and attended some of their classes and went through beginner around. I got the first 20 characters, then I got busy. And to your point, if you can't keep your time involved, you lose it. Do want to get back into it. In the new program you launched in the fall, I've started getting into the carousels and whatnot, which I think is great. So, you know, for any of the folks in the room or on the call here, if you haven't got your CW yet or you're interested in it, these guys have got a great program. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to them and have them talk to us, is because, you know, we do have a mix of members in our club, both very seasoned and certainly longstanding operators. And then we've got a lot of new people, you know, they're, you know, I guess I'd call it the late 40s plus club of, well, we finally got around to doing something we never did when we were a kid. And I know a few of us in this room are actually in that category. So yeah, they're a great club to check out. It's their club membership is really quite cost effective. I think is it still 30 US, I think, for the year? And then you guys know it better. I'll leave it up to you.
It's $30 for a year, and lifetime is $90. We like everybody to convert to lifetime because we don't have the accounting ability to be asking for $30 from 4,000 people every year, you know, so I can't do it. I can't even hardly do what I'm doing now. 70 hours a week this is taking me, Steve, to run this club.
Well, the interesting thing is it started out, you were trying to just create a little local organization, right? And then it became worldwide out of your control almost.
It does have its own life now internationally. Actually, Jim, you know, that Smithsonian article, I got a call from someone who read that from the Times of London yesterday. And there's an article going in tomorrow about CW in the Times of London.
Oh.
I looked up their circulation. That's 750,000 people that newspaper goes out to.
Uh-oh.
So
Yeah, you got a few more members coming.
Yeah, you got some life memberships
All
coming.
right.
And there tomorrow is today, so it's already out right now.
I got room in my class. Send them my way.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing I mentioned, that is that, you know, the flexibility of like, they're not kidding. Literally, there's classes every night, every morning.
I think it's 7 days a week, or at least 6, if not. It's really not hard to find a class. There's people on the West Coast. So for example, I remember taking a class in West Coast because I could get it at 10 o'clock at night and all the activities in the family are done, and that's a good time to focus on, right? So, I mean, it's not hard to find a class through their website, and yeah, if you're interested and you've got the time, I think it's certainly a good place to look to set that up. So once again, thank you on that. One thing I was going to mention, Howard, you mentioned about the visually impaired, and Ori, I don't know, or Ward, you might know, CNIB, Canadian National Institute for Blind, they have a repeater. Are they still active?
No, I don't believe they are, Nelson.
No, the shack is gone. They did a major renovation at the CNIB on Bayview, and they took the shack out.
Okay. For Howard, we're referring to as Canadian National Institute for Blind. And they did have a shack, as they were mentioned. I don't know if they still have any amateurs. It's just, you mentioned about the visually impaired, and certainly that would be our Canadian Institute that used to have some opportunities for it, but it may not, unfortunately, it doesn't look like
Yeah, they got rid of it because they needed the money, and they leased that space out to another company that was willing to pay the rent.
I can't blame them for that. But there may be something to consider if you're interested, just on the visually impaired part. I don't know if there's anybody that would be interested, but that's the organization if you were, looking to equivalent to what's in the US, if you had interest that, that's.
Well, it's kind of interesting you mentioned that, guys, because do you know Chris Smart, who's a VE3 RWJ?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. He's a white caner.
Yeah, we just reached out to him yesterday, and he's now an honorary life member of the club, and he's going to help us retool our CW trainer, our player, to be accessible for the blind and to do certain parts of our website eventually too. So he's on board. So I'm sure he knows about all the Canadian aspects too. But
yeah, he's actually in, I think, Hamilton or Burlington.
Yeah, he's in the Burlington club. So it's a coincidence to let you mention that, Steve. And
he's in Ancaster, Ontario.
We just made the partnership with him yesterday.
Yeah, we did have and we used to have a member that was also blind, but I think he's moved out west or down south now.
Who? Ryland?
Ryland, yes.
Ryland is in Ottawa. He checks into my Procom net almost every week on Sunday.
Yeah, he's moved. Unfortunately, he's no longer our local club.
He was an operator.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. So, but yeah, just that's great news. I mean, it sounds like you're already connected in that case, and certainly Chris, I've heard him on the air many times. He runs a few nets, in terms of, and also the Burlington club's quite active. It's a Burlington, I think they just went for the 50th anniversary just recently, actually, in terms of the club. So, but yeah, so I just thought I'd plug the club to the members because it's really worth.
Well, thank you. And you got to come back and buckle down, Steve, Yeah,
I got to get to the next 20 characters. I got up to 20 and I was in good shape. And then, the program changed and I said, okay, I'm just going to go back into the carousel and start over and go that route. And I just got to get the right time and fit it into the schedule, so to speak, so I can stick with it.
Well, what we did with this new program, Steve, and you'll find it different. Like when we were using the G4FON trainer, that was just set up a certain way. But the characters that we introduce are based on their frequency in the QSO. So RST would have a lot more weight than XYZ.
Yeah.
So you'll be learning RST before you're learning an X.
Yeah, and T and S are pretty good. R's, they're not too bad. But
I mean, we weighted this whole thing, and then on top of that, we moved down into the beginners and intermediate, connections on how to get on the air and getting on the air, and head copy was moved down. So we moved down everything. So you're just not learning Morse code in the new curriculum. You're learning how to get on the air. That's the focus. And you'll hear that GOTA, get on the air. You're going to hear that all the time. And classes are categorized according to their use.
Oh, very good.
So if you're in a GOTA class, you know that you're going to be preached to about getting on the air. If you don't want to hear that, then stay home, you know?
Yeah.
Don't turn on the computer, go on Netflix because you're going to get introduced to that. So that's the way we structured the whole program, made it more relevant to the end game, which is to get people to use this language.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
You guys have been a very, very nice club to talk to. I think I just wanted to say that now because it's been a pleasure speaking with you all tonight.
Yes, well, thank you once again. Really appreciate you making the time for us, and hopefully we'll see some more people, and I'll definitely get back at it, Howard. There's no question about it. Just hearing the characters, it's good to hear it again.
And Steve, once you learn the characters, then you can. I'm one of the late night instructors on the West Coast. So then you come into my class and we'll do QSO practice.
Sounds good. Very good.
He has
All
all
right.
the characters to deal with this club. You don't have to worry about this code. Jeez.
Yeah, some days.
You guys are great. Thank you.
Any last comments, guys? No?
I was gonna say,
I-
I think after this, I'm ready to put my hand up and say, personally challenge myself and other people in this club to get on the air. I've been kicking this CW thing around for years. I've tried multiple times. I've tried and stopped. Feels like it's coming together. Let's get it done. So
Excellent.
for field day, I'd like to be able to receive and send a contact. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Well, that's how this club started. It was around field day, right, Howard?
Yeah, well, we the original purpose of this club was to generate more operators on Long Island for field day, because we all know you get 2 points for CW versus 1 for Sideman. So that's why I called it the Long Island CW Club. But 4,000 members later, with 47 countries under our belt in 50 states, that name has become somewhat of an anachronism, you know?
It's a Long Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And if there's nothing else, we'll definitely let you guys go. I know. Ward, yeah, sorry, Ward.
Yeah, I just want to thank you as well. And I think this, Steve, I think this is my first meeting that I've actually missed since 2011. And I wish I could have been there tonight because I really wanted to be at the Science Center this evening, but I wasn't able to. But I just want to thank both guests. We really, really appreciate you spending the time and coming onto the Zoom meeting with us this evening. So thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Well, we did too. You sound like a really nice bunch of guys, and a good club and an active club. And if anybody has any further questions, you can contact myself or Jim. Or if you want to become a member, it's easy to find out how to do that on our website. There's a membership section.
And I want to thank you all too. And I'll end by saying, did you guys hear that? Oh, did you hear anything?
Yeah, we heard it. We heard it.
It's clean.
Okay.
I'm sorry you didn't meet Jean.
Yes.
She couldn't be here tonight. She's in August, I think it's going to be her 100th birthday.
Oh my God.
And if she's not the oldest operating hand in Canada, much less North America, she's certainly one of them. And
Yeah.
she's our ever-ready bunny up here. I don't know if you have that commercial down.
Well, there was we have a video of a woman, a Canadian woman. They wrote a book about her. She was doing CW in World War II, and I think she lived till she was like 103. I forget her name. But we have that video up on our website, and she was amazing. And she still knew her CW in her late 90s.
Mhm.
Yeah, she just, Jean, she was it 2 years ago now? I guess it was, she talked to ISS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just before COVID.
Just before COVID, one of her life's ambitions. This is a woman who has absolutely no fear of digital, of any technology, CW. She told one of the former CEOs here, and very politely, to go somewhere because he would be very rude to her. And she's a sweetheart, but she spoke, one of her life ambitions was to talk to an astronaut in the ISS. And she got to do it. They did a television program on it and everything.
Yeah, so just before COVID, as Ward mentioned.
Sorry you didn't meet her. You can't talk to anyone from the shack here around the world who has not worked her.
Yeah, VE3WAD.
Okay, well, maybe next time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, once again, thanks for
Thanks, guys.
coming, and we'll let you go, and we'll just close out the meeting, a few words here, and then we'll be good to go. I think.
Okay, so just to remind you, I think you should end your recording,
Yes. Yeah.
and then you won't have the rest of your meeting on that, okay?
Steve, can you do me a